Many people believe American higher education needs major reform. What's the best way to make that reform happen? Our next guest has a new report on the topic. Jay Schalin is Director of Policy Analysis at the James G. Martin Center for Academic Renewal, and his recent report on this topic is titled Bolstering the Board. Trustees are academia's best hope for reform. Welcome back to the program, Jay.
Thanks, Mitch.
So the title kind of gives it away. You basically think if there's going to be reform, it's going to have to involve trustees, or in the case of the University of North Carolina system, the Board of Governors, people who are not actually on the campus day to day.
Yeah, I mean, the current situation is what academia itself has produced. These are the people who have been in charge. Academics have been running the show. They control higher education's current governance is kind of an informal system called shared governance, in which the board, the administration, and the faculty all have their own spheres of activity. The board is supposed to control the finances. The administration controls the day-to-day operations and communication with the outside world. And the faculty controls the curriculum, the intellectual side of things.
You mentioned at the very outset of this report that there are two conditions needed to effect large-scale reforms, and both of them involve changing the way that the trustees and governors operate.
You need two conditions. You need to have a hierarchical organization. If you're going to reform a situation, you need to have firm leadership at the top. You can't have a system where lots and lots of decisions are made at the bottom, or in the middle, and they filter through lots of different committees and organizations. You need to have a firm grip on the reins and somebody who can make things happen. The other thing you need to have, once again, you need to have people in charge, or at least influencing, who are from outside the organization and have not adopted the ways of thinking of the organization and can take a fresh look and say, this has to change.
I would imagine some people hearing this are going to say, wait a minute, that kind of goes against what we often say in the right of center perspective, that best decisions are made by the people who are closest to them and kind of decentralize things. But you're saying that to affect the changes that are needed in academia, you really do need some sort of person at the top, group at the top saying, this is going to happen, make it happen.
Yeah, I'm all for, in many situations, I'm all for that Madisonian, let's have lots of different centers of power that balance each other out. But this is not the situation that existed when we were creating the United States. This is an institution, rather self-enclosed, that has become very badly degraded. To have the system that exists is exactly that. There's a lot of checks and balances, so nothing ever gets done. And because nothing ever gets done at the top, things seem to move in the direction that it's already moving in. And that's a disaster. We've seen the results.
So to meet both of the conditions that you spell out, you need strong board governance, is your conclusion.
Yes, and one of the problems is that the board kind of got shoved aside in the late 1800s, late 1900s, or early 1900s. They still have legal control in most cases. They either get it from the state assemblies in the case of public schools, or they get it from their charters, which makes the board the owners of the university in perpetuity. However, in practice, something very different goes along. And this is stifling any attempt to get anything done. And it has also degraded the board. They have become people who don't expect to do anything. They've become the people who just are happy to be there and socialize. And if we treat the board as a more serious organization, we will get better people, hopefully. Another key thing is the board has to control its own people. And by that, I mean it has to control the training of people and it has to control the flow of information. The biggest problem is, or one of the biggest problems is the asymmetry of information problem, in which the administration is able to treat the board, and I'll get a little earthy here, like mushrooms. I'm sure many of you understand that they are kept in the dark and fed manure. And so by that way, the board has just been shoved aside. They are not fulfilling the duties that are legally theirs. They are not fulfilling their fiduciary duty.
A joke has been that members of these types of boards show up, vote yes, and then collect the football and basketball tickets. So you're talking about a very different way to operate. How would you go about getting to the type of board that's needed?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not so sure we can do it with a lot of the prestigious private colleges or universities. They're insulated by their massive endowments and their reputations. And they are run by self-perpetuating boards, which once they go woke, they don't come back.
Plus, if they're private, they get to set their own rules.
At public universities, it depends on the politics. If you have good politics in your state, they will be able to make boards that, or appoint boards that will get something done. But there has to be the will and the awareness by the politicians. And we've seen that even with Republican politics or states dominated by Republicans, that isn't always the case. The third thing is the less prestigious private colleges, and I don't go into them much because they're sort of a different problem. But they are very influenced by market forces, and so there's some hope for them too.
So one of the things you mentioned that I want to loop back to is this idea of the members of the boards controlling themselves. I know that one of the ideas that has floated about with the UNC system in the past is having some new staff member or staff members who report only to the board and don't have any other connection to the university administration. Is that still something to look at?
Oh, that is still very much something to look at. That's paramount. That has to be done. In North Carolina, we actually have a law on the boards that allows the UNC Board of Governors to hire their own staff. So far, they have opted not to. I consider that to be feckless. But yes, it has to be a high-level policy person who is aware of what's going on in higher ed and can inform the board accurately. Today, there's a situation where the administration hires outside speakers to come in to inform them, or people from the system to inform them. So no alternative views are there. The other important thing is the training of new board members. They are being told that you are advocates for the system, you are to support the system, and they're not being told their full range of responsibilities and duties, such as they are responsible for the quality of education, and they can negate bad hires. There's been some horrendous hires. Just look up the name Dwayne Dixon at UNC Chapel Hill, who is a violent anarchist radical who's been arrested a bunch of times, and he runs a militia, a violent militia. He was hired after all this was known. So the boards can prevent hiring. They can prevent a lot of the things that's going on. They're just completely unaware of what they actually can do because the other stakeholders in the system don't want them to know.
Okay, let's say that a policymaker in a position of power to make some sort of change hears this and wants to know, other than reading the report and getting all the details, what's the first thing that needs to happen to get toward the type of board we need?
Okay, well, I would start with the electorate. Vote in strong conservatives who show an awareness that there is a problem. That is where everything starts for the UNC system. Now, for a policyholder, the first thing that they would want to do is get themselves a source of information outside of what is being presented to them by the administration or the faculty or the media, and make sure that they are aware of all of their duties and responsibilities coming straight from the documents, not coming from somebody with a vested interest in keeping them ignorant.